So YouTube and, a bunch of other social media outlets have gone to purge city because of the war in Ukraine. All the Russian state-affiliated media is being axed, and they used to have almost like a warning symbol with it. Not a warning symbol, but like just a little explainer that says, this account is part of Russian state media or whatever, or Chinese state media or whatever. Well, they're really going above and beyond now as a result of the war in Ukraine, and YouTube just axed and deplatformed Chris Hedges' show. Now, Chris Hedges was, he did work for RT America, and RT America, I believe, is also just totally shutting down. But what Chris says is YouTube pulled the entire archive of the show. So let me read you from his piece here, and then I'm going to give you what I think is the most relevant point, which shows how, so whatever they say it's about, it's never just about that. It always goes above and beyond. It's like back in the day when we were at the beginning of the war on terror, where they were like, look, we need the Patriot Act because we need to make sure terrorists don't attack us. And then obviously the Patriot Act was not just used for that. The Patriot Act was used for collecting everybody's metadata, spying on everybody. You had, and Edward Snowden leaked all this information. We learned that the NSA was spying on their love interests, and they're using it to go after, crimes that are not at all related to terrorism. And so it's expansive. The power, you get this overclass that gets to really micromanage everybody else, and that is the opposite of freedom. So let me show you what Chris Hedges says here. He writes in the Sheer Post. The entire archive of On Contact, the Emmy-nominated show I hosted for 6 years for RT America and RT International, has been disappeared from YouTube. Gone is the interview with Nathaniel Philbrick on his book about George Washington. Gone is the discussion of Kai Bird on his biography of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Gone is my exploration with Professor Sam Sloat from Trinity College, Dublin, of James Joyce's Ulysses. Gone is the show with Benjamin Moser on his biography of Susan Sontag. Gone is the show with Stephen Kinzer on his book on John Foster Dulles and Alan Dulles. Gone are the interviews with the social critics Cornel West, Tariq Ali, Noam Chomsky, Gerald Horne, Wendy Brown, Paul Street, Gabriel Rockwell, Naomi Wolf, and Slavoj Žižek. Gone are the interviews with the novelists Russell Banks and Salar Abdo. Gone is the interview with Kevin Sharp, a former federal judge, on the case of Leonard Peltier. Gone are the interviews with economists David Harvey and Richard Wolff. Gone are the interviews with the combat veterans and West Point graduates Danny Surgeon and Eric Edstrom about our wars in the Middle East. Gone are the discussions with the journalists Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi. Gone are the voices of those who are being persecuted and marginalized, including the human rights attorney Stephen Donziger and the political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal. None of the shows I did on mass incarceration where I interviewed those released from our prisons are any longer on YouTube. Gone are the shows with cartoonists Joe Sacco and Dwayne Booth, melted into thin air, leaving not a rack behind. All right, let me continue here. He says, what were my sins? I did not, like my former employer, the New York Times, sell you the lie of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, peddle conspiracy theories about Donald Trump being a Russian asset, put out a 10-part podcast called The Caliphate that was a hoax, or tell you that the information on Hunter Biden's laptop was, quote, disinformation. I did not prophesize that Joe Biden was the next FDR or that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election. This censorship is about supporting what, as I.F. Stone reminded us, governments always do, lie. Challenge the official lie, as I often did. And you will soon become a non-person on digital media. Julian Assange and Edward Snowden exposed the truth about the criminal inner workings of power. Look where they are now. This censorship is one step removed from Joseph Stalin's airbrushing of non-persons such as Leon Trotsky out of official photographs. It is a destruction of our collective memory. It removes those moments in the media when we attempted to examine our reality in ways the ruling class did not appreciate. The goal is to foster historical amnesia. If we don't know what happened in the past, we cannot make sense of the present. Okay. So, now, one thing people might think is, well, hold on now. He worked for RT. So, was he doing the official, state propaganda line of Russia when it comes to the war in Ukraine? And we have a definitive answer on that front. It is no. He denounced the Ukraine war as, quote, a criminal war of aggression. A criminal war of aggression. So he's against Russian aggression, and he has a whole archive of shows on every important issue under the sun. Mass incarceration. I'm sure he did a lot of stuff, talked to Richard Wolff, so I'm sure he did a lot of stuff on economics and universal health care and the ways in which we lag behind even the mild social democratic Scandinavian countries. He obviously is a huge critic of U.S. empire and our imperialism and our wars in the Middle East and the torture of the Bush administration. This is a guy who is a fierce opponent of the Democratic and Republican parties. He's always been a staunch advocate for third parties, and he, gives people alternatives and wants to build out some sort of an alternative. He's a huge supporter of workers in the union movement. To ban somebody like Chris Hedges, to ban somebody like Lee Camp, to ban somebody like Abby Martin, who's already been banned, by the way. I mean, it's just the clearest example I've ever seen of the slipperiest slippery slope of all time, and we're going down that slope at about 100 miles an hour. Because these are people, again, Abby Martin, a lot of people don't know this, but when we talked about Abby Martin being banned, I showed you guys the evidence of it. I remember because I saw it at the time. Abby criticized the Russian invasion of Crimea. She was on the air during that, and she criticized the Russian invasion of Crimea. And then the Russian government responded and said something like, we're going to send Abby to Crimea. And she was like, bitch, I'm not going to Crimea. So these are people who are truth tellers. These are people who sometimes take unpopular positions among their own audience and among the people who nominally run the platform that they're on. What more do you want from somebody? What more do you want from somebody? So it's just collective punishment. I don't know. You were on RT America. You're gone. You're gone. It is possible to be on an otherwise shitty platform and do a good job. The details of the specifics of what you're saying matter massively. And I'm not even saying that if they did a terrible job that they should be pulled down, because I don't believe that either. I think even if it's the rankest of rank propaganda and it's flat out apologetics for dictators and invasions or whatever, I mean, welcome to Fox News. Should Fox News be banned? Because they do Republican Party propaganda, and the Republican Party, by and large, bloodthirsty neocons like John Bolton. They have John Bolton on all the time. This guy's a fucking literal war criminal. Ban it because he's got blood on his hands. I don't say that about John Bolton. I say rebut him. Argue against him. And by the way, he makes it the easiest thing in the world because he's the dumbest person on the planet. So there is no consistent standard, and that's the main point. And he brings this up in his article, which is why I read you that part. He's like, wait a second. We're talking about disinformation and misinformation, and nobody's acknowledging the fact that oftentimes it's the mainstream media outlets in the U.S. that are peddling that misinformation and disinformation. I mean, do you remember when, Brian Williams was orgasming over the fact that we were launching missiles at Syria? You guys remember that? You guys remember when Donald Trump people said about him, I think it was Fareed Zakaria, maybe somebody else, who was like, this is the first time Donald Trump became president. Because he was launching missiles at Syria, they were cheering on an illegal and offensive attack. And he gave you 1,000 other examples, too. Russiagate's a great example. Look at what happened with the Cuomos on CNN. You had Chris Cuomo playing patty cakes with his brother on air and talking about how he's the best governor in the country and joking around. At the same time, Andrew Cuomo was making decisions that killed grandma in New York, letting COVID-positive patients back into nursing homes, hiding the death count for COVID, mired in corruption scandals which never got a peep on CNN. Should they get pulled down? Should they get pulled down? Being rank propaganda. Look, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of objectively shitty stuff happening on every platform, and there's a lot of decent stuff happening on every platform. Not a lot on certain platforms. Some platforms are way worse than others, right? But you can't ban it. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. And by the way, don't get it twisted. In this war, Russia's even gone above and beyond the banning, that the West is doing. Because they fucking act like Facebook and Instagram, and they ban every independent media outlet, and they have fake news laws where if you're giving the Ukrainian perspective, they'll lock you up. So this is not, the argument I'm making is not like US bad, Russia good. No, the argument I'm making is we need to, as a matter of principle, we have to be against these sorts of purges and deplatforming and censoring. Now, look, maybe it was a decision because of just a broad policy of YouTube. We got to get rid of all of RT America. But I don't agree with that. That's a terrible fucking idea. And the thing that hurts the most about this is these interviews oftentimes had staying power. They're going to be just as relevant in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years as they are right now. Talking to books, authors, talking to books, authors. Yeah, he's talking to books on air, like literal books. He just puts them down and talks to them. No. He talks to authors who've written interesting things, and that's just as relevant and just as timely in 20 years as it is right now. So, but the stuff with staying power has to go also, because it's guilt by association. You're affiliated with this outlet. This outlet's bad because it's affiliated with the guy who's doing the war. Again, when the U.S. invaded Iraq illegally, I don't think it would have been fair for every other country on earth to ban every U.S. outlet, regardless if they're doing a shitty job or not, and they were doing a shitty job. And there's a lot of propaganda and bullshit on RT. There is, absolutely. But you know what? There was also Chris Hedges, who did a great job. There's also Abby Martin, who did a great job. Lee Camp, Jesse Ventura had a show that was great. Ed Schultz used to have a show that was great. Tom Hartman used to have a show that was great. There's a lot of decent, good people, man. Now, do I agree with them on everything? No, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So anyway, they're coming for everybody. That's obvious. I've told you guys on a much smaller level, I've dealt with similar things. You guys know when I covered Trump going on the Full Send podcast, and I didn't even cover the part where he did the rigged election conspiracies, but they pulled down the Full Send podcast because of that conspiracy. Mine didn't even show that part of it, and they pulled down my video on it, which, by the way, almost had 100,000 views. And they were like, yeah, no, we've decided this is axed. We're not going to give people the choice to determine to watch it on their own or not. Gone. The Joe Rogan thing where I was, one of my appearances on Joe Rogan, Joe was quoting Kanye West and said Nigga. So now the whole podcast had to go on Spotify. Gone. My Twitter thing where I made a joke and then put that exploding head gif, and they said, you're basically glorifying violence and torture, and you're taking sadistic pleasure in this, and they locked my account over it. Do you not see how where we're at now is actually worse than where we were when it was totally unregulated, wild, wild west, live and let live, people say whatever you want? That still had problems. That still had downsides. And there needs to be some sort of reasonable curation in the sense that if somebody's actually committing a crime, you got to go after them. Somebody's doing targeted harassment, doxing, direct threats of violence. Those things are illegal. So not only are they ban-worthy, they're prosecutable. But do you not see how it was even better when it was totally unregulated Wild Wild West versus now, where if you fart, they want to ban you? Like, that's what we're looking at. I'm being hyperbolic, but you get the point. Chris Hedges is a public intellectual. He's a brilliant guy. And now he's got to go. I hope YouTube reverses this decision. I will not hold my breath on that front. There was also, I know Vosh had been banned from Twitch for saying the C word, Cracker. YouTube allows you to say it. I'm just walking on eggshells here. And then now Destiny was recently banned from Twitch as well. I don't know why he was banned. It appears they're not very transparent with their terms of service and like why they're taking a specific action. So he was banned as well. I mean, everybody's too ban happy and too deplatform happy, too censor happy. I don't like where we're at, man. We had Chris Hedges on Crystal Kyle and Friends. I thought he was a brilliant guy. We don't agree on everything. In fact, we debated certain things, but to take him down is absolutely ludicrous. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.